Okay, so today I'm going to show y'all two things, and then show y'all what the goal is for the project, and then break y'all up into groups to see if y'all can solve both of them. One moment. Okay, so the first thing I want to show, and I'm not sure exactly which video I showed this in, but if not, then we're going to see it for the first time here. Now I have this open up. I'm just gonna open up the console. Zoom out a little bit. Okay, so this is the console here, right? First thing I'm gonna teach about is set timeout. Maybe some of you saw it before, maybe not. Either way is fine. Set time. So let me first go to this time app. So we can see that the time app is updating, right? Because the time here is updating because every second we see the second increment. So we're literally running this every second. Last week there was a question asked, how do we keep running something like every second? And the way you run something every second is with this set timeout. Set timeout is a function. It's a built-in JavaScript function. It's something that was already created in a JavaScript language. And it takes two parameters. The first parameter it takes is some function, right? I'm gonna just say, I'm gonna just say fn for now. Let me comment all this stuff out. I'm just say fn for now. This is gonna be our function. And let me just create that up here. I'm just gonna put an empty arrow function. The second parameter it takes is a number of milliseconds. So 1,000 milliseconds is 1 second. Us having this in milliseconds gives us like a really good advantage, because now we get to run things fractions of a second. So if I want to run something every 10th of a second, I would just do 100 milliseconds. If I wanted to do it every half second, I would do 500 milliseconds. But I want to run something every second, right? And what I'm going to run is this function. So I'm going to console log. I'm just going to console log hey, right? So every second, set timeout is going to take this function and it's going to run it. And we should see hey print out every second. So if I refresh this, we can see hey printing out here. Now there's an error here because I'm working in a file that's trying to use something. I don't know why that is running like that. Oh, actually, let me put these back in. That's the problem. So so hey is running every second. Actually, I messed that part up. Set timeout runs it after 1 second. After 1 second, it runs it. Now, if I put, let's say 4 seconds, it's going to run hey after 4 seconds. So I refresh it, and after 4 seconds, we should see hey pop up here and hey log to the console. That's set timeout. Let me write a note for that. Runs after X amount of milliseconds, right? Now we have another thing called setInterval, and this one runs every second. It runs on an interval, and it's going to keep running continuously. I'm gonna comment out this set timeout, and I'm gonna let this set interval run every second. It's gonna run the same function every second. Refresh this, and we're gonna see this run every second. One moment, I'll be right back. My bad. But yeah, this runs every second. right? So that brings me back to this clock. Last week, or Sunday, we learned how to get the current hours, the current minutes, and the current seconds. And we also set up functions to get the current hours, minutes, and seconds. If I go to the Google Drive, right, I'm gonna just grab those functions out of there because I put them there. Let me stop sharing for 2 seconds. And I'm gonna grab those functions. And I'll show you where that is in the drive also. I'm gonna share my screen again. All right, so right now I'm inside of the class folder. If I go to class resources, and then I go to 2/20/22, inside of there is this app.js folder. These are the functions that we wrote on Sunday. So I'm just gonna copy these, and I'm gonna put those in here, inside of here. Right. So I'm gonna split everybody up into groups, right? Well, what I want you to do, right? Or actually, let me teach one more thing before I let everyone go. The next thing I want to teach is or not teach, or just reinforce, I should say, is document.getElement. I want to show you how to select, how to manipulate the HTML with JavaScript. So I have a div here, right? And I'm gonna name this, I'm just gonna give this div an ID of my div. Let me link that JavaScript file back in there so that it knows about it. Inside of the JS folder, and I want to link util.js because that's where I'm putting all my JavaScript in. So we have this div with an ID of my div. Now I'm going to show y'all how to change the text inside of this div. So I'm gonna comment out the set interval, right? And I'm gonna put this set timeout back in. After 4 seconds, what I want to do is I want to set the text of my div to like something, just the text to something. I'm gonna go to the browser and refresh and show you that like there's literally nothing there. I deleted all of the HTML, all of it's gone. So what I'm gonna do is after 4 seconds, first I'm gonna grab it by ID, and this isn't a course. To target something by ID, we use the document object.
And I'm good right now.
Yeah, to grab something by ID, we use the document object. And the document object has properties and methods to use to manipulate the DOM, or the document object model, or in other words, the HTML. It has a method, getElement by ID. Since I gave this an ID of my div, I can pass that in as a parameter into this method right here. So now that I use this document, I getElement by ID, I have access to that div here. I'm gonna just name it my div because it just makes sense to name it that. And to change the text in that div, you use a property on this object. Document.getElement by ID passes my div back in object. So now my div is an object. I use dot. I can start using the properties and methods that's on it. One of the methods on it is inner text, and you can set it equal to anything you want. I'm gonna set it equal to the text of something. That's literally going to change the text of this div. And I'm gonna actually do it in 6 seconds, just so that I can hurry up and bring it up in the dev tools and have you see it like show up live. Let me first attach this here. So so after 6 seconds, it's gonna run this function. It's gonna grab this by ID, and then it's gonna change the inner text to something. If I refresh this, right, I'm gonna go to the elements tab. I can see my div is right here. but after 6 seconds, we can see something popped up. And if I open this up, it says something here. If you missed it, I'm gonna refresh and we're gonna do it again. There's nothing inside of this div right now. But after 6 seconds, we see something show up here on the screen and we see something shows up here inside of the HTML. So what I want you to do as a group is to use this a combination of setInterval, document.getElementById, this inner text, and these three functions here to display the hours, the minutes, and the seconds to the screen. You can open up a whole new HTML file and you can try that stuff out. I'm gonna copy and paste this code into the chat just so everyone has it. They have something to reference from. And at 7:35, I'll bring everybody back from the breakout rooms, and then I'll just show you. I'll just finish off the project. Any questions with what I have here while I create these breakout rooms? Okay. All right, I'll just start creating the breakout rooms then.
Can you reiterate the instructions exactly?
Sure. So let me share my screen again. So we need to use these three functions. Remember on Sunday we created these, the get hours, get minutes, and get seconds, and we return the hours, the minutes, and the seconds, right? And today we learned about this set interval. We don't need to use the set timeout. We know set interval runs a function every second or every amount of milliseconds. So what I want y'all to do is essentially create you can start with a blank HTML file, maybe create 3 like divs, name 1 hour, name 1 minute, and name 1 second. And then, change the inner text of these to the hour, the minute, and the seconds. And I want you to run that every single second. Let me throw that in the chat too. I'm gonna throw these divs in the chat. This is essentially what this is basically essentially how I created the time app. Let me go back. Refresh this. Yeah, it's essentially how I get this same behavior here. And the bonus, I guess, if you get past that, you can figure out how to get the PM in there as well. So now, yeah, it'll be either AM or PM. Let me break everyone up into groups. Yeah,
Are we gonna continue to using the util.js instead of putting this in the app.js?
Yeah, you can put it in. So if you already downloaded the starter code, you can put it inside of time.js. You can either download the starter code and do all that, or you can like just start a blank HTML, link some JavaScript in there, and then just do it that way. Even if you don't get to the point where you're doing like the inner text, at least try to get like the small components down. And I'm going to be around to the breakout rooms to help anyone out also. So 2 breakout rooms. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right. I have the breakout rooms open. You're free to go to one. Oh, I'm just finishing up the assignments. It should pop up for the rest of you soon. Okay. Hey, Nair and Tessa, did you see the breakout room pop up? I don't know if you already saw it. Oh, so on my laptop, could you add me to room 1? Oh, yes, you are. Sorry. Let me add this to room 1. All right, yeah. Once everyone's back, we'll just go over. We'll just actually go over the solution. I think that'll probably be a lot easier to do it that way. I think everyone's for the most part. All right, so instead of me creating all of these functions again, what I'm gonna do is go over. I'm gonna go over the solution, and while we go over the solution, we're gonna get practice with the debug. Like it'll be better to do two. It'll be two birds with one stone. So and the recording is resumed also. So basically we have this set timeout here, right? Remember we had gave it 2 parameters. That first parameter was a function. In this case, I just put the function directly in there. Like we saw it like this earlier. And then I did fn then something. But in this case, I just dropped the function directly in there. Let me just quickly show you just so that you see it. This is what we just had. But a lot of the times you're gonna see people code it like this. Like you just take that whole function and you just place it directly inside of there. This is how you're gonna see it most of the time, but it's the same thing. It's the same concept. Every second, and please, if anyone have any questions, stop me. I want you to understand these things. So every second, what we're gonna do is we're gonna run this set date function. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a debugger here, right? And then we're gonna run through this, And then we're gonna also go through all of these functions and see what all of them do, just so you can see how this all comes together. So I'm going to refresh over here. And it stops at the debugger. Let me zoom out a little bit. And the debugger is not in these files. If ever you're running a debugger and it doesn't show up automatically, you can just press this button here, and then it'll bring you directly to the debugger. Like, this happens a lot. But anyway, we hit the debugger and it stopped right there. What we want to do is run this set date function. This set date function is gonna trickle. It's gonna basically, this is like the starting point, or like the function that runs everything. And through this function, all of these other functions is going to run, and they're all going to work together to set the date inside of the timeout. And we're going to see how that works. So right now we're in the debugger, and it's highlighting over this function right here. The way we go inside of a function is with this down button here. This it says step into next function call. That's what the tooltip says. So we're going to press that, and we're going to go inside of that function. I'm going to, just for convenience, I'm going to place another debugger in the I'm going to place a few debuggers directly inside of the dev tools. This is, I don't know if you already saw this, but this is how you also set debuggers. It works the exact same way this debugger here works. I'm just putting these here just so we can see how they work. So basically, the way this is set up is we have three variables. We have the hour, the minute, and the second. And we have these three functions that gets the hour, get the minute, and get the seconds. These are all defined within this file. So first, I'm going to go inside of get hour so we can see what's inside of there. I'm going to do that with this downward button. Click that. So now we're inside of get hour. Right. So now we're doing the exact same thing we did before. We're doing new date here, and we're setting it equal to a variable. Now our variable name was date, but I mean, it's just a variable name. So you can change it to whatever you want. It still turns out to be the same. So after we go past this, we can hover over time, and we can see that we have the current day, the hour, minute, and second here, right? So because time is now set to this object, if we hover over this, we can see that this is an object. Now time has those properties and methods, and one of the methods it has is this get hour. So I'm going to set hour equal to get hour. So after we do that, hour now equals 19. Now some of you may have realized that this is in military time. So military time, you got to do a few things to get this in like the regular time that we're used to seeing it in. And I do that with this if statement. So it's saying if the hour is greater than 12, what we want to do is subtract 12 from the hour. So it's 19. And if we subtract 12, we should get 7, because right now it's the current hour is 7. So it goes into this if statement, and it reassigns the hour to itself minus 12. And that's the reason why we use this let keyword here, because we know that we're going to reassign this. So that this is a good example of when to use the let keyword. So after I go over that, if I hover over hour, you can see that hour is now 7, and 7 is going to be returned from this function. So I'm gonna press this again to go to the next line. And if I look down here, we can see, let me put this up. We can see that the return value is 7. It literally tells us what's being returned from the function. So 7 is being returned because hour is 7. I'll click this to go to the next line. And now we should see that 7 was returned back to this variable. So then that's set to 7. Now I'm going to go inside of minute, right? If I go inside a minute, we do the same thing. We have time, and then we do the get minutes. And with the get minutes, we don't have to worry about that whole like military time thing. The only thing that's affected is the hour in that case. So we know the current minute is 49. Obviously, it's not, well, yeah, I guess it's still 49 right now. So it's 49 because we just passed over this line. So it's getting the current minute, which is 49. And I'm going to return 49 from this function. Now minute is 49. Now get seconds. I'm gonna go inside of that. Same deal here. We get the seconds. The second is 8. And then we're gonna return 8 from this function. I'm gonna press this button here. And now we have 8. So we have hour 7, minute 49, and second 8. Now I'm going to go inside of this other function that I defined here, setHTML. setHTML is going to take 3 parameters, the hour, the minute, and the second. I'm going to pass those 3 into it. And we can see that here, the setHTML part. But let me go inside of it with this downward button. And we can see that these 3 was passed in the hour, the minute, the second. I didn't pass in a 4th parameter. I'm honestly not sure why I have this fourth parameter here, but I didn't pass that in. And as you can see, you can still add it here, but it's going to be undefined because we didn't set it equal to anything. So right now we're going to set up three variables. So I have this get by ID function, right? Now let me, before I go past this line, I want to show you where that is in the code. So get by ID, it's not even in this file. It should not be in this file. It's not in this file. And it's not a built-in JavaScript function. So you may be thinking like, where did that function even come from? That function is inside of util.js, get by ID. This is an example of JavaScript files talking to each other. Like literally this JavaScript file reference something that's inside of this JavaScript file. And the reason these 2 files know about each other is because they're both inside of the HTML. If I go all the way down to the bottom, we have util.js here, and we have time.js here. Because util.js is before time.js, time.js knows about everything that's inside of util.js. So you can sort of think of this as like throwing a bunch of code on the inside of the HTML file at the same time. But either way, I'm gonna go inside of this function, which is inside of the util.js. You can see it here, util.js. I gave it an ID of hour, HR. What it's going to do is going to get element by ID, and it's going to get it by the passed in parameter, which is hour. If we go to the HTML, we can see that this is the time app here, the clock app. And this is that div with the ID of hour. We got the minute here, the second here, and like the time of day, AM or PM. This is that setup that we saw in the project. So it's getting that by ID, and I'm just going to name it element. That's just to be general. And right now, it grabbed that HTML element and put it into this variable. And now it's going to return this HTML element from the function. After it returns it, it gives it back to this variable here. And these 2 do the exact same thing. Get by ID minute, get by ID second. It's literally going to pass the HTML element back. So we got the hour here. You can see it here. This is a div with the ID of hour. If we hover over this one, this is the div with the ID of min. If we hover over this one, this is the div with the ID of second. Right. Now Now I'm going to get the time of day. And I probably could have named this a little bit better, but this is that AM or PM part, right? I'm a get element by ID. I'm sorry, actually, I'm gonna grab the HTML element with the ID of daytime. This one here, I'm just gonna grab that and put that into this variable, just like I did the hour, minutes, and seconds. So now we got this div with a ID of daytime, right? So now that I have these three HTML elements, I can set the inner text of each. So I'm gonna do h.innerText equals whatever I return from this function. And this function is going to take the hour. I passed in 7 here. It's going to pass in 7. What this function is going to do is it's going to take this 7 and it's going to make it 2 digits, just like it did last time. So we want to make this 0, 7. So if I go inside of this with this down arrow, we're going to see what happens inside of this function. We pass it a number. Say if the number is less than 10, we return 0 plus the number. That's going to return 0 plus 7. And this is less than 10. And if we look down here at the return value, we can see that the return value is 0, 7. So it's literally giving us back the string of 0, 7. So now the inner text of this HR is 0, 7. It does the same thing for the minute and it does the same thing for the second. I'm gonna go inside a minute just to show you the other case. The minute is 49. We know that that's greater than 10. So it's going to skip over that if statement and it's just going to return the number by itself. So now the return value is 49 because it was already double digits. And now the inner text of the minute is 49. And the same thing with the seconds. Right now the inner text says 25 because it's set to 25 here. I just set these to random values. But after we go through this function and pass it, the number 9, it should be 0, 8. So now it's 0, 8 because seconds was 8. So now we set the hour, the minute, and the seconds into the HTML. The last thing we want to set is the time of day. So I'm going to set that equal to whatever is returned from this function here, get time of day. I'm going to go into that function. And this one gives us the time. We get the hour. And we have a variable here. We're just going to set it. We're going to say let time of day equals AM. We're going to set it to AM by default, right? And if that hour is greater than 11, we know that it's now PM because PM starts at 12. And that hour is greater than 11. So we're going to set time of day equal to PM instead. And then we're going to return PM. Just know, like, if this was less than 7, then we would have skipped over this whole thing. And we would have just returned what it was initially set to, which was AM to begin with. But now we're going to return PM because we went inside of this if statement and changed the value of it. Return value is PM. So now we set the inner text of daytime to PM. And that is it, really. And it's going to run through that whole process over and over again every second. And that's how we get that updated. That's how we get that updated time every second. What I'm going to do is show you something else. You see how I got this debugger here and I keep pressing play and it keeps stopping here. If I don't want this to run, I'm gonna press this button. This is going to deactivate all of the debuggers. So it's not going to hit this debugger anymore. And I'm gonna hit play and it's going to do its thing. If I open this back up, we see that all of these change every second. And that's because we ran through all of these functions that did all of that for us. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I do have a quick question. Can you explain that inner text part again?
Yeah.
The dot inner text part.
Right. So the inner text, right? So we were doing this, right? Now I'm gonna put it here just so that we see it all in the same spot. What we literally did was our document dot get element by ID. We passed in is hour. And because we have access to this HTML element now, that's what the document gives us. It gives us access to the HTML element that we targeted. Now we can change the text of it. And the way we change the text inside of the HTML element is with this inner text property. Whatever we set, whatever we give it as a string back or a number or whatever, it's going to set the inner text to that, to the string version of it. So if I gave this like the number 1 or like 200, or for example, it's going to set the inner text to like the string of 200.
Okay, so the inner text is giving the div, basically turning the div into a string.
Yeah, it's turning the text inside of it to a string. If I go to, I'm gonna put this here, right? You see the stuff that's flashing is the things that's like being quote unquote updated. Like this is being updated. What's inside of it? This is the inner text of this div.
Gotcha.
Yeah, these divs are just flashing because it's just saying that there's a change happening inside of those divs.
Perfect. Appreciate you.
Yep. Any other questions?
I have a question, and I might have missed it. But I understand you said if it's greater than 11, it would go into PM. But how would it, like when it's time to do the like 1 PM, 2 PM like that? Or is it going to update because it's going every second? Is automatically going to know that after 12 hours it goes to the back to AM?
Right, yeah, because it just recalculates every second. So it's going to keep getting the current time every second. And depending on the current time, it's going to change it to either AM or PM. So
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, that's all done with the set interval. So I want y'all to notice like there's a lot of stuff happening every second. We literally have to run through every single function just to do this very simple thing. And that's how coding really is. Like y'all gonna start to see that like small things can take a long time to do, and it can take a lot of thought process to even like you put a lot of thought into just doing this very small thing. That's how coding really is, to be honest, for the most part. So, and also I want y'all to notice like how like we literally triggered everything through one function. And this one function made use of all the other functions that I defined in here. It literally took something from all of this. And every one of these functions are separated into like a mini task. Every one of these functions have one thing to do. The only thing this one has to be concerned about is if the number is less than 10. If it's less than 10, then we pass a 0 plus the number. If not, we pass the number. Like this function does not have to know about anything else that any other functions are doing. This is the only task that function has. This function, the only task this one have is to get the hours. Doesn't care about anything else anybody else is doing. Same thing for all of them. They're all broken up into like a mini task. And that's how you're supposed to code it. That's how you code, like this how you code in a very clean way. We could have very well just threw everything inside of this set date function, and that would have ended up being like, was it 64 lines here, or about 64 lines. But since we broke it up into small little pieces, we're able to focus on each individual part of the problem. Like we had to break this down into small pieces, and we solve each little small piece. We put all of that together to do this one thing here. So. Any questions? I know it's already 8. We're like 3 minutes over, but I'm free to answer any questions. And if you don't have any questions, I'll see you Sunday. I'll stick around though for any questions.
I had a question. So I had started over, and I used the script to to link the app.js and the util.js. Was
Mhm.
I supposed to put the util on top, like first?
Yeah. So with JavaScript, right? It reads from top to bottom, right? If this is after time.js, time is not going to know about anything inside of this file. The only thing time knows, I mean, yeah, the only thing time knows about is the stuff that's above it. If it didn't already happen, it's not going to know about it. So the file that's most towards the bottom knows about all of the other JavaScript files. So we switch spots here, right? We know time was using this get by ID, and get by ID is inside of util. So, but we didn't put util here on the screen yet. So we like this, as far as this one knows, it doesn't know what util is because util is not before it. So yeah, the order matters if they're using the functions within themselves, like within other JavaScript files. So yeah, util is always supposed to be first.
Okay. Cool.
And this is a common file name too. Y'all gonna see this like util, like everyone uses this as a convention, just like we use index.html, people use util.js. And that literally has all of like the general functions, the functions that all of the other components can use. You never want to rewrite, you never want to write things over and over again. You want to avoid writing the same thing over and over. And that's why we put this into a function. So we won't have to keep writing this document.get element by ID and then passing the ID. We just literally call this one function and that function does everything for us. So it's helping us limit how much we actually write. And all of this, and the finished code is in a course too. If y'all go to the project and you go to the complete code, you're gonna see, you can download it and you're gonna see all of this code in there. Any other questions?
Hey, thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Have a good night, man.
You too. See ya.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah. Night.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That was
Sorry, I was trying to think of a question, Isaiah, but I'm not even sure. I think I think I would just try and play around with it.
Yeah. So did I lose you anywhere? Like in like what I was doing? I can like.
No, and it sounds really clear. I wasn't able to do it in the group, but once you did it, it's like everything really makes sense. It's just
Just going
yeah,
through it and
yeah, like just making sure the function is right, everything is set up right. There was a point in time where I was using const and I'm like, okay, it's in white right now. What the heck is going on? Let me check the format and everything. So it just takes some playing around with it, but it's all right. I'm gonna definitely work on this tonight. See if I can do it by myself. I like that you do have the complete code because I had something to revert back to, but I try not to look at it too much. I try to do it by myself first.
sometimes it helps to just see the solution, to be honest.
Wow, I'm in class.
Yeah.
I got keep it just in case.
Yeah, but thank you again. Oh yeah, for tonight, did you want us to just practice
Wait.
I finished section 6, but you want us to go into section 7 or not quite yet? Because section
Yeah.
6 is a lot.
Yeah, you can. I mean, so on Sunday we're gonna go over first project because this was technically the second one. We're gonna go over the first one, and then we're gonna go over the one. If we finish that on time, which we most likely will, we're gonna go over the one after the time app. I forgot what's after the time app, whatever something that is. So
Was it calculator? I think it was calculator. I got to double check.
yeah, it might be calculated. You're probably right, to be honest. Well, whatever is after that, we're gonna start doing. So if you can get to that, or just like start going in that direction, we're gonna start that on Sunday, and we're gonna hopefully finish it on Tuesday of next week. So you got time. You can you good to take a break if you push through to
Got
6. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, definitely a lot of practicing to do. Okay. All right. Well, y'all have a good night.
Yeah, Diamond.
All right, hold on.